Hello, I'm Jovan Johnson with the IMF Tracker. This week, Jamaica on course to develop new bankruptcy legislation, parliamentarians to get short Christmas holiday, and business leader speaks out against lack of confidence culture. These stories in a moment, but first, our question of the week. What is a natural monopoly? Stay tuned, the answer comes up at the end of the program. The government is progressing as planned to pass the Insolvency Act as part of efforts to improve the business environment in Jamaica. The indication came from the latest report on Jamaica's performance under its program with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The IMF October report says the government has agreed that improvement to the insolvency framework is one of the pieces of legislation it expects to finalize before year-end. The IMF says effective insolvency systems facilitate the rehabilitation of enterprises and provide an efficient mechanism for the liquidation of enterprises that cannot be rehabilitated. The IMF has not set the reform of the insolvency legislation as a structural benchmark under its agreement with Jamaica. However, the Jamaican government has committed itself as part of the agreement to put the legislation in place by the end of December. The government has not given any indication when an insolvency or bankruptcy bill will be tabled in Parliament. Meanwhile, Jamaica's Parliament is to sit way into the Christmas holidays. This is to consider critical pieces of legislation in order to avoid faltering on upcoming IMF quarterly reviews. Philip Paulwell, the leader of government business in the House of Representatives, said elected members should be prepared to be at work up until December 17 or later. Under the IMF agreement, Jamaica must pass critical pieces of legislation by year-end. The outstanding bills are the Bankruptcy, Security Interest in Personal Property, Securities Amendment and Omnibus Tax Incentives Acts. The committee monitoring Jamaica's program with the IMF says even modest economic growth will be challenging unless the private sector fills the breach created by the government's fiscal tightening. Co-chairman of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, Richard Biles, has outlined 5 conditions he believes will induce growth: private sector confidence in the economic future, growth-stimulating initiatives, creation of investment opportunities, initiating medium-term projects, and credible leadership. Mr. Biles says Jamaica has a legacy of economic failure, which in turn has bred a culture of no confidence in some sections of the business community. He told participants at a development lecture last week that if there is confidence the future will be better, investors will have an incentive to brave perils and work around inefficiencies. According to the business leader, confidence is encouraged by talk but is built by action. And to end today's program, the answer to this week's question. The question again, what is a natural monopoly? A natural monopoly is a business formation that exists as a result of the high fixed or startup costs of operating business in a particular industry. And that's where we end our trek this week on the IMF Tracker. I'm Jovan Johnson.